Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Nick Files. I am your host, Nick Muley. Today, I have pretty much just about one final slideshow that I'm going to be presenting for now, that is, which I will get to in just a few seconds. This will before we get started with that, we're actually going to wrap up the slideshow that we were talking about last week, which was the final slides of the Phantom Cat sightings. And then right after we talk about that, our main focus for tonight is another similar cryptid, which is surprising that this is even considered a cryptid. But again, we're talking about something that's not really native here in North America or Europe. Obviously, in Australia, yes, but seeing something like this is relatively unusual. And that is, we're going to be talking about what are known as phantom kangaroos or errant kangaroos. Again, animals that are seen in areas that they're not native to at all. Obviously, yes, here in North America and Europe, we got them like in captivity in zoos and whatnot. But we're talking about, creatures that these reports and sightings of these creatures that have been going on since the late 19th century and still going to the present day. So we're going to get into a lot of detail on that. But just one final thing, because I don't want to waste too much time on talking, because I want to try to get to this last slideshow as quick as possible. As I just mentioned, this is going to be not necessarily, but the last episode of Nick Files in which I'll be presenting a slideshow. Next week will be the season 2 finale, in which I'll just basically come on for maybe an hour or so and take in additional ideas for what I could eventually present for future episodes. I mean, obviously, yes, I do already have a list. I would like to continue on with presenting a few more cryptid presentations before we start getting back into doing the paranormal and historic locations and events. But also adding to that too, and I'll make this announcement early, for tomorrow's episode of the Graven Back with me, Lois, and Wayne, and Rosie, excuse me. I'm also going to be presenting a presentation for that one too, in which I'll be presenting Hurricane Mitch. As last week, I know I said that originally last week, and the week before was the 25th anniversary of this deadly hurricane, but unfortunately, because I didn't have enough time to finish the slideshow, I wasn't able to present it then. But I'm fortunate to say, other than adding a few more pieces together, that slideshow for tomorrow will be all ready to go. And I'm really looking forward to that one. It is another sad story, but it's going to be a really good one because I honestly believe it's a story that definitely needs to be told. But anyways, without further ado, just before we get to the slideshow, I just want to give the shout outs to all those who just joined in. What's up, Eric? Hello, Yvonne. Good to see you. What's going on, Rita? Hello, Natalie. And that actually reminds me, I just realized I forgot to send this because somebody actually requested for me to send the link so she could watch it. Just give me 1 second here. This won't take long at all. And then we will proceed because like I said, I don't want to waste too much time on talking too much. So give me 1 second here. Okay, so all right, this is perfect. Okay, I think we're all set. Okay, so without further ado, let's finally wrap up the slideshow for the Phantom Cats first. So just go through this routine as usual. Jeez, I hope that got sent. Just making sure. See, I'm kind of all over the place. Nope, wait, no, it hasn't. Okay, so good thing I did check. There we go. Now it's been sent. Okay. So what we were talking about last week was the most recent sightings of the Phantom Cats. Now, what I'm going to do quickly is I don't need to. Okay, that was kind of weird. I don't know why it was not showing up before, but okay, so this is where we left off. I'll give you guys just a second just to read with what we were talking about last week. Unfortunately, I was unable to really have any time to really add the pictures for the remaining slides, which I will do eventually, which I will do as a post editing process. Because, like I said, it may seem like obviously it's going to be a very long time before I present, many of these presentations again. But if ever given the chance, at least then it will be ready and I'll have the pictures added to it. So, again, I do apologize I don't have them, but I will add them after the show. Again, I just didn't have enough time to really add them because I was in the process of creating the slideshow I was going to be presenting tonight. So, but anyways, I don't want to stay on for too long. So I'm sure most of you guys remember the slide from before. So continuing on, there's only 8 slides left on this slideshow. The big cat the big cat once could be found everywhere in the state. Solitary in habitat, the cat usually hunts at night and was usually heard rather than seen. Its peculiar scream is hair-raising. Frontier memorist Eliza Farnham reported that while a panther was occasionally found in the deep forest along the creek bottoms of Tazewell County when she lived there in the 1840s, no one ever ventured onto the open prairie. No, excuse me, none ever ventured onto the open prairies. When cats did meet humans, the result, at least, I guess that might be a mistype. At least the results that were remembered. Oh, wait, no, I'm sorry. Yeah, the results that were remembered and written about were often bloody. The Pioneer Annals of Life around McKee Creek in Montgomery County tell of a youth snatched off his pony and killed and partially devoured by a cat. A more typical ending was engineered by one William Huffmaster, who lived on Lick Creek in Sangamon County's Loami Township. He and a neighbor are said to have treed an animal they knew as a panther, while the neighbor left to fetch a gun. Huffmaster, with the help of his dogs, caught the animal and clubbed it to death. Today, oddly, the animal is described by the media and government agencies as the cougar, a name that is of Indian origin. Cougar seems to be preferred by the wildlife experts who usually provide reporters with an informed opinion, possibly to avoid confusion with the leopards of Asia and Africa, which are also known as panthers. Panther has always been the commonest usage in the American South. An early reference for the term in Illinois no doubt owes to the southern origin of so many of the state's settlers, which is true. Contrary to popular belief, Chicago, like where I live, Chicago is not really as old as Southern Illinois is. Southern Illinois, as I probably have said in a previous show, has a much older it certainly has a much older and longer history than Northern Illinois does, and I think with a lot of the stuff that's been going on down there, that pretty much owes to that opinion. The cat is still popularly known as the panther in Southern Illinois. To the word shift means that Illinois may be recovering a bit of its four-legged pioneer heritage as it loses a bit of its linguistic one. Illinois has not had a species of big cats for many years, but this does not stop the sightings from taking place. However, the standard response to these sightings seems to be that the mystery cats are domesticated animals that somehow escaped from or were released by their owners. Officials from the Illinois Department of Natural Resources maintain that they have never been able to confirm the existence of panthers and cougars in the area, despite the numerous reports. If there are cougars in Illinois, they must have been released by someone or escaped from someone, said Tim Schweizer, IDNR spokesman, in a newspaper interview. We know of no instances of wild cougars in Illinois, although Schweizer said the agency does receive calls from time to time. The staff has been unable to confirm the reports. Other researchers do go to the trouble to run down the reports, though. As mentioned, mountain lions and pumas are not indigenous to this area, although John Lutz of the Eastern Puma Research Network reports that a number of sightings have occurred in Illinois. These sightings are usually of mountain lions that are tan or chocolate in color. He believes that some reports of black panthers can all be traced to imported animals released by their owners or cats that escaped off of circus trains, but not all. He recently wrote that state and federal wildlife officials and a few independent researchers of other groups claim black panthers or leopards have escaped from circus locations and they could explain some of the big cats. But there aren't that many circus trains to have derailed to account for the total number of black panther sightings. He agreed that the claims of state officials do not answer all of the questions that remain about these mysterious animals, and added, one of our independent researchers in Bethany, Illinois, got a photo of a large black cat walking away from his camera location. So there is documented evidence of black panthers in Illinois, which contradicts the claims of state officials. More than 150 cougar sightings have been reported in Illinois since 1950, according to the Eastern Puma Research Network. The mystery panthers are normally described as being black in color, but they are reported in other shades as well. Regardless, black panthers don't even belong on the North American continent, and cats of other hues have been missing from Illinois for years. So why do they keep showing up here in Illinois? Where do these animals come from? Author Loren Coleman, once again, an Illinois native who is now at a university in Portland, Maine, offers some interesting theories in his book, Mysterious America. Coleman is currently a columnist for several international magazines and has been recognized as one of the world's foremost authorities on cryptozoology and Fortean phenomena. Fortean theories can be traced back to a man named Charles Fort, one of the first collectors of accounts of strange phenomena. Essentially, I always consider him, because I know so much about him, he was probably truly one of the first real, if you want to use that term, true early paranormal investigators. He's another guy that I've often referred to as one of our paranormal ancestors, if you will, which hence part of that name. For his last name Fort is what inspired the term Fortean. So he was a real master of unexplained phenomenon during the mid to late 19th century. In fact, Fort lived a strange life, spending most of it reading in the New York Public Library and collecting literally thousands of reports and articles about weird events, which he labeled as the damned. He collected the data into a number of books, all dealing with unusual occurrences like frogs falling from the sky, unexplained disappearances, ghost lights, cattle mutilations, and phantom black panthers, among other things. Fort is said to have invented the term teleportation, which means the transfer of a physical object from one location to another by unexplainable means. Ford suggested that perhaps this was how these mysterious animals ended up in places where they didn't belong, like, for instance, Illinois. Coleman further explains and lends credence to the theory in his books and his research. It has been widely embraced by many Forteans over the years, simply because no other reasonable explanation exists. To conclude that cougars are again residents in Illinois, however, is to get ahead of the facts. Not all the animals reported as cougars are cougars, and not all the cougars cited may be wild cougars, and not all the wild cougars cited are members of breeding populations. The Eastern Cougar Network, a nonprofit wildlife research organization whose staff zoologist is Cleen Nielsen of Southern Illinois University at Carbondale, confirms just one cougar in Illinois. No doubt many, even most of the sightings owed to poor eyesight. Confusion had acquired the name mountain lion, after all, from settlers who mistook it for a female African lion or over-keen imaginations. One of the last belongs to businessman Virgil Smith of Harrisburg, who for years insisted that 250 to 300 cougars are living wild in Illinois as a result of a secret cougar release program run by state and federal officials. There is no such program, although to the conspiracy-minded, the fact that a government agency denies it is IPSO facto proof of the story's accuracy. The Illinois Department of Natural Resources for years publicly demanded that Smith offer either evidence for his claims or an apology, but received neither. The secret government cougar is not the only subspecies of that cat thought to be prowling Illinois. Part of the state seems to be suffering a plague of black panthers, which hereabouts means not leopards, the true black panther, but the black or melanistic form of the cougar. The Eastern Puma Research Network, not to be confused with the science-based Eastern Cougar Network, calculated that up to a third of more than 600 cougar sightings in the eastern United States from 1983 to 1989 involved black panthers, a much higher proportion than in the western United States. In Illinois, the incidence was higher. A majority of the sightings made around Shawnee National Forest in that period were of black animals. In Decatur, farther north, so many black panthers have been spotted since the 1950s that the city has become famous among paranormal who regard a black cat that can weigh up to 160 pounds as the Cadillac Escalade of portents, which we've driven through Decatur on numerous occasions. I think this might be the last full slide. The mystery cats attracted to Illinois a member of Britain's Center for Fortean Zoology, which calls itself the only professional, scientific, and full-time organization in the world dedicated to cryptozoology, or the study of unknown animals. Matter of fact, that's the logo. His investigation, like all such investigations, came to no conclusion. Dozens of sightings have yielded very few bits of indisputable forensic evidence of the animal's presence, such as paw print or scat, which is why skeptics lump the Illinois black panther with other mythic creatures such as Bigfoot and the compassionate conservative. The problem is, it is not certain that the cougar has a melanistic form, at least in North America. Black pumas are known in South America, where the pet cougars sold in this country originate. That raises the possibility that people are seeing escaped or released pets. But pet black cougars would have to be as commonplace in Illinois as cocker spaniels to explain so many sightings over so many years. Several dead bodies of the smaller type of ABC have turned out to be hybrids between the Scottish wildcat and domestic house cats, as an example right there. The larger varieties that look like a specific species, such as leopards, are generally presumed to be escaped exotic pets. These are often kept illegally by their owners, so the authorities never know how many of these might be around. However, the hardest skeptics, including the British government, tend to reject even the exotic pet hypothesis in favor of hoaxes and killings done by Scottish wildcats. A number of leopard skulls found on the moors have turned out to be from leopard skin rugs, adding to the controversy. Let me just make sure. Oh my goodness, I thought there was the last one. Never mind then. Uh, Plenty of credible witnesses remain convinced that what they have seen was no dog. Most experts reply that while there may indeed be cougars out there, they are merely escaped or abandoned pets or circus animals. It can be assumed that many cougars are being kept as pets or in makeshift zoos in Illinois, as are other exotic creatures that could be easily be mistaken for cougars. That's such. Animals sometimes escape was confirmed in 2000 and 2001 when two former pet cougars were found by the Department of Natural Resources staff roaming downstate Illinois. Ecologists may find the distinction between a wild cougar and an escaped or abandoned pet to be essential, but it may strike many people as meaningless. 20 years ago, it was reasonable to assume that any big cat found in Illinois had to have been carried into it in a box. But 20 years of enlightened green policy since then have left the mid-continent crisscrossed with wildish places that serve as stepping stones on which animals can safely cross otherwise inhospitable terrain. Illinois offers plenty of habitat in the forests of southern Illinois or the wooded river areas. Even in suburban Lake County, a big excuse me, a big cat would find 25,000 acres of forest and preserves along the Des Plaines River and plentiful food in the form of deer. Indeed, Lake County would be to a hungry cat what a government job used to be for humans. While such critters are wild, they are not very wild, not like the wolf or bear or cougar. The renewed presence of these large predators will force authorities to ponder how to protect people from wildlife for the first time, since the days when the state paid its citizens a bounty for every wolf they killed. Recent fatal attacks by cougars on adult humans in the West shocked wildlife experts, as well as residents, because all their textbooks had insisted the cougar is a timid creature in the presence of people. Modern hunting bans, however, have created generations of animals that have lost much of their fear of humans. A policy protecting animals may be making people more vulnerable. As long as cougars don't try to turn property owners into prey, the larger public seems likely to remain less afraid than curious. In Lake County, when the scent of cougars is in the air, the county has warned residents to keep pets inside the house. Excuse me. With the sudden appearance of an elegant and exotic creature in a part of the state not famous for either elegance or exoticism is diverting, if only because it gives everyone something to talk about with the neighbors, other than traffic jams around Gurnee, which that's just like a half hour from me. In this, they could differ more from the region's pioneers' forebears, who would have reached for a rifle if they saw a cougar. Today, residents are likely to reach for the video camera, or phone camera, if you will. This may mark us not as braver than our ancestors, merely less experienced. In a world in which we enjoy an unnatural absence of danger from wild beasts, our natural fear of big cats has been misplaced. Today, we know them from only the sanitized images from TV wildlife documentaries and the zombicized specimens trapped in zoos. We no longer appreciate their wildness or their strength. Is our collective fear of wild animals really gone? Or is it merely forgotten, tucked away in our mental attics, because we no longer need it in Illinois, in which the only predators most of us face are on the highways? Once we were as hunted as rabbits, as vulnerable as mice, wrote Chicago Tribune columnist Bill Stokes in 1991. And perhaps therein is the reason for our perverted fascination with the untamed unknown. In the deepest recesses of our being, maybe we hark back with an odd nostalgia to a time when there were cougars staring at us from the darkness of the forest. Nostalgia? Not quite, but the prospect of meeting a dangerous wild animal makes us momentarily alive again in a way that we pampered existence seldom requires. That alone may be reason enough to welcome them back to Illinois. Oh, here's the last slide. Here we go. So as far as central and southern Illinois today, so do black panthers and other big cats still roam the darkest corners of Illinois, as well as throughout the country and around the world? It would appear that they still do. But where do these creatures come from, and where do they disappear to? And most importantly, and do they walk here alone? Can we explain all of these sightings as merely displaced animals that have escaped from zoos and passing circus trains? And do they live among us? You be the judge. So that is officially it for that. So I don't want to stay on for that for too long, because now we're going to get to the main topic real quick, just to get to the shout outs very quickly. Let's see who else we got here now. What's going on, Jamie? Good to see you. Big old Tom. Where kangaroos. Hello, Charles. Good to see you. I'm doing very well. So is my family. Hope you're doing well yourself. Yes, I did see. We had an earth real quick. For those of you who didn't hear about this on the news earlier, we had an earthquake here. Although we didn't feel the effects, it was a 3.6 magnitude earthquake. I wasn't able to read a lot of the details, at least not yet. I probably will right after the show's over. But that's the first earthquake that we've had here in the state of Illinois in several, definitely within several years. And I think I probably know the culprit of exactly where that earthquake probably originated from. And that's no doubt the New Madrid fault line, which is kind of right in between the border of Missouri and Missouri and northeast. No, excuse me. Southwestern Tennessee, northeastern Arkansas, and also southeastern Missouri. So definitely something we got to keep an eye on. But yeah, I'm very well aware of it, Rita. So Charles, you said you've seen a black puma down in Southwest Texas. That's interesting. You'll have to, and at some point, message me. Give me the information, like what you remember. And what I'll actually do is I'll add it to the Phantom Cat sightings on the documents. And eventually, if I ever do this, when I do have the chance of presenting the slideshow again, I'd be more than happy to add that to the Texas slide. Okay, so without further ado, let's get right down to the kangaroos. Let me set this up real quick, because again, I only got about 40 minutes before I got to wrap this up. All right, thanks a lot, Charles. Yeah, just message me when you have a chance. Okay, so now we get to the main subject. Oh, I almost clicked on the wrong link. Okay, here we go. So as I mentioned, we're gonna. Forgot to put a slide in. You know what? Let me fix that real quick, because I always prefer to have the pictures always faded in. So I was in such a hurry, I didn't even think about adding the fade in effect. All right, there we go. So let's try this again. So like I said, now we focus on the main subject, which is what are known as phantom kangaroos or errant kangaroos. So periodically, reports of kangaroos, wallabies, or their accompanying footprints have been made in places where, once again, one would not expect them, specifically areas where there is no native population. Some explanations put forth, once again, are escaped zoo or circus animals, or publicity stunts by local businesses using photographs from Australia. Others suggest outbreaks of such sightings are a form of mass hysteria. The existence of a stable North American breeding population of kangaroos has never been confirmed, even though sightings are quite common. Some breeding populations of feral kangaroos in Europe have been accepted as real by mainstream scientists, but not in enough places to account for the widespread spatial scale of European kangaroo sightings. The escapes of occasional pet kangaroos in Europe and North America do not seem to explain the sheer number of sightings, and escapes from zoos or the circus are rare, with the animals generally being recaptured within a few days at most. Also known as errant kangaroos, according to multiple, admittedly spurious cryptozoology guides, reports of these mythic marsupials began to appear at the turn of the 19th century. Phantom kangaroos have been spotted in America dating back to 1899, from Minnesota to California to New Jersey to North Carolina. Even into the new millennium, reports continue to trickle in of phantom kangaroos, glimpsed hopping across fields or standing on the roadside. There are a few grainy pictures floating around, and even some police reports, but no animal, living or dead, has ever been recovered. So to kind of give some description on these, which is it's exactly what you would imagine. First off, it's hard to believe that Australian kangaroos could be hopping around all over the United States. But what's even harder to imagine is that these out-of-place marsupials appear to possess supernatural abilities as they rummage through the backyards of bewildered people in California, Illinois, Wisconsin, Tennessee, Minnesota, Oklahoma, Ohio, and Indiana. Adding to that, they didn't throw all the states. What they also didn't throw in was Michigan, New Jersey, New York, Georgia, as well as Pennsylvania. Well, again, it does say to name a few. But they've also been spotted in other parts of the world, including France, Japan, New Zealand, Poland, and the UK. Errant kangaroos have been spotted in a variety of urban and rural settings and are said to be particularly hostile. They are described to be 3 to 5 feet, excuse me, they are described to be 3 to 5.5 feet tall, light tan to brown in color, pointed ears, pointed snout, large hind legs, and small forelegs and a long tail. The creatures also have glowing eyes and ghostly characteristics like disappearing or hopping through walls, as well as being frighteningly large. They have been blamed for slaughtering numerous dogs, cats, rabbits, birds, and other small animals in areas with high kangaroo activity. They are also known for taking long jumps and can move as fast as 20 miles per hour. Now, as far as sightings go, we're going to start off once again internationally. Let's start off with the first one, Austria. In August 2003, Austrian police captured a kangaroo at Wiener Neustadt, but failed to identify its presumed owner. Next is Canada. In 1984, George Messinger of Bridgeton, Nova Scotia, saw a kangaroo-like creature saw a kangaroo-like beast. He described the beast as about 2.5 feet tall, with short front paws tight to the body, with large back legs and a deer-like head. Actually, it looked like a small kangaroo at the time, but I thought that was ridiculous being in this country. In France, it is sometimes said there is a population of kangaroos living in the wild of township Imachi. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Probably just butchering that name again. About 50 kilometers southwest of Paris. In fact, they are wallabies. These wallabies are descended from a breeding population which escaped during a botched burglary attempt at an animal park in the 1970s. Now, surprisingly, even in Japan, between 2003 and 2010, there was a series of phantom kangaroo sightings in the Miyama Mountain District of Osaki, Miyagi City, and Miyagi Prefecture. The sightings were all reported in the Miyama Mountain District of Osaki City in Miyagi saying kind of the same thing. A community of 441 households located about 350 kilometers north of Tokyo. The city has received about 30 reports of kangaroo-like animals, including 3 cases since December, when the mountain area was often covered in snow. Next up, New Zealand. In 1831, which this is probably the oldest report I was able to find of these kangaroos, 2 men off the Sydney Packet reported to the collector of customers in Australia that they had seen a giant kangaroo 9 meters and standing at a small cove in Dusky Sound. They observed it on the bush line from a small boat, and when they came too close, it leapt into the water and plowed through the water, leaving a wake extending from end of the sound to the other. Kawa Island in the Hauraki Gulf has a colony of 3 species of wallabies, descending from a deliberate introduction by Sir George Grey, a 19th century governor. Next up, Poland. So back to Europe. There is a documented population of kangaroos about 50 kilometers southwest of Krakow, near the Slovakian border. The colony originated from a pair of kangaroos that escaped from a local zoo and found refuge in the border area, where ongoing Polish-Slovak territorial disputes have created a wide swath of dematerialized wilderness. The colony now numbers between 50 and 85 kangaroos. Now, in the United Kingdom, documented colonies of red-necked wallabies exist in the United Kingdom, in particular England. In Staffordshire, a breeding colony has established itself after breaking loose from a private zoo in Leek, Staffordshire in the 1930s. Their population peaked in the 1970s, reaching numbers between 60 and 70. There have been no confirmed sightings of the wallabies between 2000 and 2008, with some locals believing they must have died out. Although in 2000, there were four sightings of a 6-foot kangaroo eating leaves in Lewisham, London. However, newspapers reported wallaby sightings in July 2009, including clear pictures, and made reference to sightings in 2008. Other wallaby colonies exist in the UK, including reliable reports from the fenland on the Norfolk-Lincolnshire border, and there are a few in Ashdown Forest, Sussex. In October 2013, what was reported as a Bennett's wallaby was filmed by zoologist Maurice Melzack in Highgate Cemetery, Hampstead, London. And I wasn't able to find the video, but I was able to find the screenshots, and these are the actual screenshots of supposedly this wallaby that was found in the cemetery. So definitely a very clear image. Even though the second image is still pretty much the same as the one on the corner, this had a wider picture to it, so I decided to add it to the slide. But in particular, also in Scotland, Inchconnechen, an island in Loch Lomond, has a population of wallabies as well. Lady Aaron Colquhoun, I don't even know how to say the last name, introduced them in the 1920s. And now, once again, focusing on the United States from this point on. Evidence of these errant kangaroos is severely limited. One of these mysterious marsupials was allegedly hit by a car and killed on August 31st, 1981. However, both the corpse and the anonymous driver disappeared before they could be investigated. In California, in 1980, a kangaroo was said to haunt San Francisco's, believe it or not, Golden Gate Bridge, although wasn't able to find anything else on it. In Colorado, on August 17th, 1976, a kangaroo was seen by a Citizens Band radio operator near Golden, Colorado at 2:10 a.m. The radio operator's report was forwarded to the police, and 5 law enforcement officers had some success tracking the marsupial. At 4:15 a.m., one of the group, patrolman Donald Douglas, saw the kangaroo near some clay pits. He said the kangaroo was full grown and hopped away when he approached it. In Delaware, in September of 1979, a dark-colored leaping kangaroo was seen near Delaware's tiny village of Concord. Police found a 6-inch lock of hair, 4x4, and as well as 4x4.5 inches of tracks. In Iowa, on August 4th, 1999, a woman named Lois Eckhart saw a kangaroo-like animal with a long tail jump by cows near a farm in Wellman, Iowa. On a few days later, on August 16th, Mary Stengel and her husband Pa spotted a kangaroo while driving in the countryside about 16 miles south of Ottumwa, Iowa. It was bouncing from the west side of the highway toward the east, Mary said. It was Pat. I'm sorry. I got that. I forgot to add the T. I thought it was Pa for some reason. Pat turned around to make sure he saw what he thought he saw and watched it slowly bound across the road. Davis County Sheriff's officials say they have not had any reports of a runaway kangaroo. And Kiko Sampson, who works at the Wilderness Kingdom Zoo south of Ottumwa, said it's definitely not the zoo's kangaroo. As many people have done before her, and many will in the future, despite skeptical authorities who tried to convince her that she had not seen what she knows what she saw, Mary Stengel stuck to her story. In 2005, an all-too real kangaroo was captured in Iowa. It was placed in the Villarreal Zoo. It seemed to have no peculiarities distinguishing it from ordinary kangaroos. In Kansas, next, during all this activity in Minnesota, it says during all this activity in Minnesota, which we will be getting to, which, again, I'm doing this pretty much all in alphabetical order. During all this activity in Minnesota, kangaroos were making appearances elsewhere in the country. From July to August of 1965, Motorists sighted kangaroos outside of Abilene and Wakefield, Kansas. On July 26, Burt Radar spied a phantom roo east of Abilene, Kansas on Interstate 70. Jerry L. Condrey saw his mystery kangaroo on August 15th of northeast of Wakefield. On November 1st, 1971, Mrs. Edward Johnson, who lives near Abilene, reported seeing a kangaroo not far from her home. Now, combining two states because this was really connected in Michigan and Ohio. In 1949, the area surrounding Grove City, Ohio, experienced a monster flap of their own. Mr. Lewis Staub, while driving a Greyhound bus near Grove City in January of that year, encountered a hopping marsupial-like beast when the vehicle's bright headlights illuminated it. He described it as about 4.5 feet tall, hairy and brownish in color. It had a long pointed head. It leaped a barbed wire fence and disappeared. It resembled a kangaroo, but strangely, it appeared to jump on all fours. He was certain it wasn't a deer, almost as if the kangaroos were again hopping their way across or around the Midwest. They turned up in Michigan and Ohio again almost 20 years later in 1968. On the last day of May, a motorist traveling along Ohio route reported to the Ohio State Patrol that he had seen a kangaroo hopping about near Monroe at 2:30 a.m. The radio dispatcher took the report lightly, but sent Patrolman James Patrick for a check. Patrick reported back within a matter of minutes. The thing hopped right across the road in front of my cruiser, Patrick said. It sure looked like a kangaroo to me. He said the animal leaped off in the direction of Lebanon. On August 3rd, a citizen in Lansing, Michigan, reported to state police that he had seen a kangaroo hopping around the campus of Michigan State University near College and Jolly Roads. Then, well over almost 15 years later, I don't know why I keep saying one, on September 23rd, 1984, a woman motorist said she saw a kangaroo hopping across I-94 near the Detroit, Michigan Metropolitan Airport. The next morning, sheriff deputies reported the same thing, but nothing more was heard of this creature. Next up, now this is what I was just talking about in Minnesota. A year before Nebraska's flap, so we'll eventually get to Nebraska soon, strangeness settled in Minnesota. From 1957 to 1967, phantom kangaroos haunted the woods around Coon Rapids, Minnesota, and were spotted by numerous startled witnesses who dubbed it Big Bunny. The first sighting occurred with Mrs. Barbara Batmer and her two sons, ages 7 and 9. They were playing near a forested area of Coon Rapids off Highway 10. They claimed then, and have stuck to their story ever since, that they saw two kangaroos hopping together through the woods. The 5-foot-tall animals hopped out of some trees, crossed a small clearing about 50 feet in front of the boys, and disappeared into another wooded area. With this clear view of the creatures, they were certain that the color of the kangaroos was a light tan to medium brown. Because of Mrs. Batmer's efforts, more people came forward with their knowledge of Coon Rapids kangaroo stories. Linda Brody is certain it was a kangaroo she saw in 1958. Mrs. Hayter said the boys described the enormous rabbit as being as big as they were and just hopping around. Mr. and Mrs. Willard L. Hayes of Coon Rapids testified to the fact they saw two oversized bunnies on the evening of April 24th, 1967. Hazel Hayes told that the kangaroos were in an open area approximately 1 mile west of Highway 47 near the Anoka County Fairgrounds. In Mississippi, so down in the deep south, in a more recent account, a kangaroo was spotted hopping along US 90 in Bay St. Louis, Mississippi. Next up, now we can get to what I was just briefly mentioning, Nebraska. Sightings of kangaroos exploded all over the state of Nebraska in 1958. On July 28th, Charles Weltzel, was at his Platte River cabin when he saw a deer-like animal chasing dogs near his cabin home on the Platte River near Grand Island, Nebraska. When he got within 10 yards of it, he realized it was a kangaroo. To Wetzel, the animal, or whatever it was, appeared to be about 6 feet tall, with large hind legs and small forelegs that barely touched the ground as it jumped. According to Wetzel, the kangaroo stayed around the cabin for several minutes before it bounded away into an alfalfa field, taking 10-foot leaps. Wetzel's report was not an isolated event in Nebraska that year. Other sightings of kangaroos were reported from towns as distant as 100 miles from each other, Endicott, Stanton, and Fairbury among them. Wetzel was operating a brewery in Grand Island at the time of his sighting. He was so taken with the experience that he named one of his beer brands Wetzel Kangaroo Beer. I'm not sure if that's still being made today, but that's quite a name for a beer product. In New Jersey, a family reports strange sounds emanating from their barn in Mays Landing, New Jersey in 1900. When investigated, it was reported that the creature responsible looked nearly identical to a kangaroo. It was said to be the size of a small calf and appeared to weigh roughly 150 pounds. After the animal escaped the barn, the family reported seeing its tracks 8 to 10 feet apart, coming and going from a swamp near the edge of their property. This was actually supposed to show up at the beginning. I don't know why it didn't. In New York, in this case, in 2013, the Ridgefield Press reported that a motorist in North Salem, New York, captured on video what he thought was a kangaroo and published the video on their website, which unfortunately, in spite of my best searches I always do, I was unable to find the video. But I don't know if this is an actual image from the video itself, but this was as close as I can get to kind of add to the legitimacy of the sighting. The newspaper noted that escaped wallabies, smaller than kangaroos, were known in Westchester County, which encompasses North Salem. Several people in the county had kept wallabies as pets, which is not surprising. Now, in North Carolina, on October 9th, 1981, in Asheville, home to the famed Brown Mountain Lights, and Biltmore, North Carolina, a kangaroo was seen near a motel and even resulted in an unsuccessful police and newspaper reporter chase. Brown Mountain, believe it or not, is going to be a location that I am planning on adding to a future episode of Nick Files. It's a really fascinating location. If given the chance, I would love to check out the Brown Mountain Lights. In July 1998, another sighting took place in Raleigh when a resident called police reporting a kangaroo in her front yard, but it was never captured. Now in Oklahoma, in August of 1981, a Tulsa, Oklahoma motorist struck and killed. Oh, this is what it was. A Tulsa, Oklahoma motorist struck and killed a kangaroo while another escaped into traffic and vanished. Now, recently, in 2013 in Oklahoma, a kangaroo was reportedly recorded by hunters in a field. The video was published on the website YouTube and prompted speculation that the animal may be a pet kangaroo who went missing in the state just over a year earlier. In Pennsylvania, in 1907, newspapers in the area report a kangaroo being spotted near Pleasant Run in Pennsburg, Pennsylvania. Many witnesses report seeing a creature that moves extremely fast and appears to bounce or hop. Those who saw it at a moment of stillness reported it as being gray in color with a head resembling a sheep. Its feet were as large as well as its tail. When approached by people, the creature takes off at a great speed. When dogs were released to corner it, it is said the dogs were attacked not with teeth or claws, but with strong kicks to the body. Oh, now this is interesting here for Tennessee. So, sorry, someone tried messaging me. This is what I'm about now. What I'm actually about to bring up is actually, again, something that I will eventually go into more detail in a later cryptid slideshow. Right now, this is just one that I'm kind of going small into details. On January 13th and 14th, 1934, a giant, a typical kangaroo or kangaroo like beast was reported by several witnesses over a 5-day period and to have killed and partially devoured several animals, including ducks, geese, a German shepherd police dog, and other dogs. I don't know if this is like considered an actual photograph, but this definitely kind of fit into the story, definitely. The Reverend W.J. Hancock saw it running and leaping across a field. Here's the really unusual thing. Kangaroos are typically unaggressive and vegetarian. So, but if that wasn't enough, a witness described the animal as looking like a large kangaroo running and leaping across a field. A search party followed the animal's tracks to a mountainside cave where they stopped. The animal was never found, and national news coverage drew widespread ridicule. This actually does tie in with another cryptid, which I'm about to reveal, because not everyone agrees with the idea of the creature being a kangaroo-like beast. Most cryptozoologists believe that the creature was more that the creature was more that the creature more was that of the devil monkey, especially due to its aggressive and dangerous behavior, carnivorous attacks on other animals, as well as having the abilities to leap long distances, which I can certainly see it more being involved, which I honestly believe it's more of a devil monkey than a phantom kangaroo. Okay. Oh, yes. So next up, that video that I was talking about that was supposedly shot down in Oklahoma. I was fortunate enough. Oh, wait on a second. I don't know how that played without me clicking on it, but this is the actual video that was shot down in Oklahoma. It's just a 20 or 30-second clip. Now, you're not going to see the kangaroo right away. Watch carefully because it does go real quick. It eventually reveals itself in the 15-second mark. I mean, this thing just zooms across the camera. So check this out. So yeah, I was very fortunate to find this video. Check this out though.
We're goose hunting right now, and there's literally a kangaroo getting ready to fucking jump by us.
Oh, excuse the language.
Oh my god, this is insane. What in the crap is going on? There it is! There it is! Oh my god. Here it comes. There it is! There it is! There's a fucking kangaroo!
Well, I can't really blame the guy, for giving that kind of reaction, but I'll play it one last time so you guys can get a clear view.
Oh my god. Here it comes. There it is! There it is! There's a fucking kangaroo!
Oh, good thing I did play this again. Apparently cut out the first time. That is just so weird to see something like that in the Oklahoma prairie. Now in Utah, in the following year, once again, 1981. It just seems like 1981 seemed to have been a big year for a lot of these kangaroo reports. It produced a bumper crop of kangaroo stories. Beginning in June, they stretched into October and ranged from the Rockies to Appalachia. In early June, Ray Alt was tending sheep near Cedar Ford, Utah, when he was spooked by a big yellowish animal jumping 6 feet straight in the air. I was checking the sheep up the canyon and off to the side of them. I saw something jump straight up. I thought that was a little strange. I got closer to the animal that jumped, and it looked at me right in the eye. Then jump, jump, jump. Off it went, Alt said. Ray Alt was certain that it was a kangaroo and commented, I've seen kangaroos in the movies and on TV, and there was no mistaking it. It looked like a big kangaroo rat, kind of yellowish with some dark on the ears. Who knows where this thing came from? In Washington, sometime early in 1967, William Shearer encountered one of these critters in Puyallup, Washington, a town more well known for recurring reports of screaming Bigfoot than hopping kangaroos. Now, in Wisconsin, now this is where we're going to get to the main part of the slideshow. Again, I only got 10 minutes, so hopefully I can try to make this as quick as possible. In Wisconsin, according to W. Hayden Blackman's Field Guide to North American Monsters, this is actually the very first report of an actual, other than the one from New Zealand, this was the first and earliest report of a phantom or errant kangaroo here in the United States. And it says the first reported errant kangaroo sighting was on June 12, 1899 in New Richmond, Wisconsin, which unfortunately, and I bet I'm going to eventually talk about this on a future episode, which also was the same day a devastating and deadly tornado struck the town. It's still considered, I think, the deadliest tornado to have ever struck the state of Wisconsin. And I think it's now ranked, I believe it's either the 4th, 5th, or 6th deadliest tornado in U.S. history. 117 people were killed by this tornado. And it happened literally without warning. I mean, you have to remember, this was 1899. And warnings were not really as advanced as we are now. So it was very devastating. But apparently during the tornado, a woman saw a kangaroo leaping across her backyard. It's not an actual sketch. I just added it in, just to continue on with the subject. And he got this. Although a circus was in town, apparently no kangaroos were accompanying it. Many of the sightings in Wisconsin around this time seem to point more toward a much more aggressive animal. In fact, killer kangaroo behavior caused one such animal to be labeled as a werewolf in 1972. A kangaroo-like creature was reported to have attacked a horse there, leaving a 30-inch gash across the horse's chest. The kangaroo seemed to have literally leapt over in 1977, but on April 5th, 1978, is the first recorded date of a sighting in the area of Waukesha. On that day at 6:45 a.m. on East Moreland Belvedere, east of Highway A, witness Wilcox and Krusk saw a kangaroo. This was followed by an April 12th sighting by members of the Haishlish family of nearby Pewaukee Township. It was going pretty quick. It was hopping. We knew it had to be a kangaroo. Jill Haishlish said at the time, Jill, her husband, Peter, and his mother, Esther, were sitting in the dining room eating supper about 6:15 p.m. when they spotted the kangaroo in their backyard. It disappeared over a hill as Peter tried to pursue it. It was so fast, Jill recalled. The next day at 4:45 p.m., William J. Bush was returning home from his job as a social worker at a Waukesha County residential school when he saw his kangaroo. Bush was driving on Highway 83 when about 15 feet in front of him, a 3-foot-tall creature with a slightly odd-shaped head, little front legs, and long back feet scampered across the road. 3 days later at 3 a.m., on April 16th, Greg and Janet Napentek saw a kangaroo as they were driving home along Highway A, east of Waukesha. I've seen a deer before. I know what a deer looks like. I know it was a kangaroo, Janet Napentek observed. On April 23rd, around 10:45 a.m., Lance Nero was having toast and coffee when he glanced outside to see 2 kangaroos hop out of the woods across a road, through part of a field and across another road. Lance and Loretta Nero, along with members of the Waukesha County Sheriff's Department, discovered tracks left behind by the animals. Some deputies tried to quickly debunk the tracks by saying that they were made by deer or cows, in spite of their appearance. Veteran cryptozoologist Mark A. Hall interviewed the Neros and found them to be intelligent and sincere people. They showed Hall 5 casts, and he described the tracks. Generally, the tracks have a 2-pronged fork appearance with 2 knobs at the rear of the fork handle. The tracks were impressed into mud at a new housing development, which accounts somewhat for their depth. Measuring 2 of the casts, Mark Hall found this range at length 5.75 inches to 6 inches in width and 2.75 inches to 3 125 inches. The animal appeared to have 3 toes. This is not an actual photo of the supposed tracks that were found, but it would give you an idea of what supposedly these tracks actually looked like. Oh, whoops, I forgot to, this was supposed to appear beforehand, but on April 24th in Waukesha at 5:20 p.m., two 23-year-old men took 2 Polaroid color pictures of a kangaroo they saw in a bush. One picture is blurry and fuzzy, but the other clearly shows a kangaroo-like animal. And from what I was told, that is the actual photograph that was taken that appeared a lot clearer than the other one. Once again, cryptozoologist Lauren Coleman says it resembles a redneck wallaby or swamp wallaby. Years later, an unconfirmed story surfaced that the 2 men were taxidermists who had taken a photo of a stuffed wallaby. The most recent sighting of a kangaroo anywhere was in 2019. Police received a call around 7 a.m. stating that a kangaroo had been spotted on a walking bridge near Fox City Stadium and I-41 in Grand Chute. Upon investigation, police found no trace of the animal. Nearby Greenville Zoo reported that all their kangaroos were safe and accounted for. So there was definitely no explanation for this particular kangaroo sighting. Now, once again, and I combine it as the main ordeal, in Illinois and Indiana, perhaps the most well-documented example of an errant kangaroo occurred in 1974. And believe it or not, in and around Chicago, not this time in southern Illinois. In the early morning hours on October 18th in Chicago, Illinois, 2 Chicago police officers were called in to investigate a report that a kangaroo was standing and sitting in someone's front porch. This particular call got a good laugh from officers and radio dispatchers until a few hours later when the 2 cops had the 5-foot-high animal cornered in a dark alley. One of the officers inexplicably thought that it would be a good idea to try and handcuff the animal. He gave this a try, and the kangaroo started screeching and became vicious, which I would not blame that animal for doing that, because what it did next was it began punching the officers in the face and kicking them in the shins. Yeah, that was probably not such a good idea, trying to handcuff an unknown kangaroo. Understandably, the officers backed off. This is probably the only cryptid report I think I've ever come across where the results actually were more funny than frightening. A minute or 2 later, additional squad cars arrived, and the kangaroo took off at high speed. It cleared a fence and vanished from the scene. Over the next month, numerous kangaroo sightings were reported in Illinois and in the neighboring states of Indiana and Wisconsin, with timing suggesting more than one animal if reports were accurate. A kangaroo was seen the next day by 13-year-old Kenneth Grange Shamer, a paper boy who was delivering newspapers again at around 7 a.m. that morning when he heard the squeal of brakes from a car. He turned and spotted the kangaroo standing just a few feet away. The boy and the animal looked at one another, and the kangaroo hopped away as usual. About an hour later, 2 boys saw a kangaroo near Austin and Eastwood Roads. And if 2 sightings weren't enough, an unidentified caller reported to the Chicago police that he had seen a kangaroo hopping around Belmont and Mango Avenues at about 6 p.m. Apparently, the kangaroo developed quite an appetite after making 3 appearances on Saturday, because the next morning, the Chicago police switchboard received calls from startled residents who claimed the creature was rummaging through their garbage cans. The next week, on October 23rd, it was seen again roaming about in Schiller Woods near Irving Park Road, which that's, again, just like 20 minutes away on the opposite side from where I live. And the week after that, on November 1st, outside of Plano, reported by a police officer who said it jumped 8 feet from a field into the road. 30 minutes later, the same kangaroo, or another mystery beast, was reported 50 miles away back in Chicago, and then was reported again the following night. This was to be the last kangaroo seen in Chicago until early November. Not sure what that's supposed to mean. From then on, things were pretty quiet all around the marsupials. I mean, all around until the marsupials started to pop up and other phantoms come out of out of a cornfield bordering a drugstore on Rensselaer's south edge around 8:30 a.m. From there, the kangaroo hopped down Charles Street and then crossed over into another cornfield. When last seen by Henschel, the animal was hopping west towards some trees on the distant edge of another cornfield. The sighting touched off a massive search, but not a trace of the animal was found. I hope some farmer or somebody else sees it, or everybody will think I'm a nut, said Henschel. But it was a kangaroo. I know it was. Henschel really didn't have long to wait because later that day, 2 more sightings occurred. Around noon, Charles James of Rensselaer, I really don't know how to say that one, saw what he thought was a kangaroo. He saw the animal bounding out of some woods near St. Joseph's College, after which it hopped over a hill about 1,000 feet from the witness. Following the sighting, 7 law enforcement units sped into the area, only to find, of course, no kangaroo. Then, about 5 p.m. that day, Bill Babcock reported that he too had seen the animal. The kangaroo, he reported, was hopping around near a gravel pit located near his construction company office. Babcock stated that he saw the creature heading west. On November 3rd, the kangaroo was reported by Frank Kochscherver in a forest preserve. On November 4th, a truck driver spotted a kangaroo and a deer in a nearby field. He got out to examine the tracks and became convinced that his sighting was correct. On November 6th, another truck driver near Lansing narrowly missed hitting a kangaroo. It was then reported the following 3 days in the surrounding countryside. On November 15th, the kangaroo was once again back in Chicago. Joe Bernotis was taking a train to work that Friday morning when he saw the creature through the vehicle's window. I'm sure that somebody else must have seen it because I was in an 8-car train. But when people see something like that, they don't always want to say anything. A few days later, there was a rash of sightings in nearby Indiana. Reports ceased about a month after the original story. Now, going about a year later, on July 14th, 1975, a kangaroo showed up near Decatur, which is no surprise. Mrs. Rosemary Hopwood was traveling along Route 128 near Dalton City at about, once again, 7 a.m. when she was startled to see an animal along the side of the road that she first mistook for a dog. Getting closer, she looked again and realized the animal was a kangaroo. She described the animal as light beige in color, about 5.5 feet tall on all fours, and 2.5 feet tall when sitting upright. The thing had pointed ears and a long, thick tail. It hopped away into a cornfield and disappeared. 3 days later, several anonymous witnesses also reported seeing a kangaroo in the general area. Rosemary Hopwood was the receipt of much ribbing, as she put it, because of her experience. A more positive side effect was that other people with weird tales to tell felt comfortable sharing them with Mrs. Hopwood. For example, one St. Elmo farmer told her about the time a black panther had faced his car. So that's kind of strange coincidence. But still, all these stories and her frequent feeling that she was seeing strange lights in the area did not make Rosemary Hopwood think it was any less weird to say she saw a kangaroo in Illinois. DeQuoin was the site of another July kangaroo encounter of that year. Kevin Luthi was one of several people who saw a 5-foot kangaroo-like animal bound through some cornfields. Luthi was not quick to report his sighting, as he felt everyone would think he was crazy. So that's understandable. I think this might be the last slide of the slideshow, of the sightings, and then we're going to wrap up just the results. In 1976, Illinois was once again the site of kangaroo activity. 25-year-old Harry Matterson of Rock Island spotted one of the animals near his home on Tuesday, April 6th. Matterson was out walking his dog at 6:30 a.m. when he encountered the animal. I looked across the street, and there it was, a kangaroo. It was a big one. It came hopping through the yard. The kangaroo and I stood there looking at each other for about a minute. Then it turned around and went hopping away off to the north. Matterson was sure the animal he had seen was a kangaroo. He had been to the Milwaukee Zoo and knew what a kangaroo looked like. More witnesses also chimed in with their testimony. When the animal began its exit, Harry ran into the house and persuaded his wife, Barbara, and his mother-in-law to come outside and see the creature. Of course, by the time the others had made it outside, the kangaroo was already on its way, hopping faster than a dog, according to Barbara. So at least they were able to get a brief view of it. With no alternatives, the trio just stood incredulously on the front lawn and watched the marsupial disappear into the rapidly rising sun. Mrs. Matterson said that exactly 1 month to the day after their sighting, an unnamed woman saw a kangaroo in Rock Island. Okay, so we're getting down to the conclusion. So I know I'm going over a few minutes, but this shouldn't take too long. The existence of a stable North American breeding population of kangaroos has never been confirmed, even though sightings are quite common. Some breeding populations of feral kangaroos in Europe have been accepted as real by mainstream scientists, but not in, oh wait, see, it's saying the same thing. Okay, we can just skip that one. The escapes of occasional pet kangaroos in Europe and North America do not seem to explain the sheer number of sightings and escape from. Okay, yeah, this is okay. So, however, this I'll have to get rid of, but this is fine. However, some sightings do fit the description of an extinct type of giant short-faced kangaroo called Proctoptodon. I don't even know how to say that, but that's supposedly of what it supposedly looked like when it lived. These animals were herbivores and lived in groups. There is really no explanation for kangaroos eating other animals, though. But killing them, including police dogs, is possible if the kangaroo had received rabies or had been attempting to defend itself. Most explanations of these errant kangaroos do not rest on sightings of escaped kangaroos. Instead, the mainstream scientists and the cryptozoologists have gone in different directions with their theories. Mainstream science tends to suggest that sightings are based on their sheer hallucination or mistaken observation of more ordinary creatures, such as feral dogs. Cryptozoologists tend to hypothesize that, at some point in the past, feral kangaroos established a breeding population. A few explanations go much farther and propose that North America has a native undiscovered marsupial that is related to the mostly extinct South American marsupials. Australian kangaroos that have escaped from zoos or private properties are another possible cause of the sightings. There are several animal sanctuaries around the United States housing kangaroos, numerous zoos, and an unknown number of unlicensed owners. If these animals escape from private citizens who had owned them illegally, it's not likely they would be reported. Is it possible some of these animals have established a breeding population over the years? One more interesting explanation for phantom kangaroos is that they represent a species of rare marsupial not yet classified by science. The North American kangaroo, while biologically plausible, is a stretch. It's tough to imagine an animal that thrives in fields elsewhere in the world would go undetected for so long in America. It is even harder to imagine, especially down south, one never getting shot by a hunter. There are marsupials now get this, there are marsupials in the Americas, most notably in South America. North America has the opossum, but south of the Isthmus of Panama, there are nearly 100 species of marsupial, including 60 species of opossum. In fact, Australian marsupials originated in South America many millions of years ago when Australia, South America, and Antarctica were connected. These days, there are tremendous differences between American and Australian marsupials. That is, except for an animal called the Monito del Monte. Strangely, this tiny critter shares more genetic similarities with Australian marsupials than its American cousins. It is apparently the only extant member of the family of marsupials that went on to colonize Australia. Oh, whoa. I don't know how that occurred. What does this mean for the American kangaroo? Obviously, this tiny animal wouldn't be mistaken for a kangaroo, even if it did somehow make its way to North America. It means the possibility exists for convergent evolution. This is when distant ancestors evolved similar traits despite their complete separation. So, if nature decided this model worked in Australia, might nature decide the same type of creature would evolve in America? Does this explain how there could be an extremely rare species of kangaroo in America? Unfortunately, there is another side to phantom kangaroo sightings that causes the whole idea to take an even more ridiculous turn. Ghostly kangaroos, creatures that attack people and feed on livestock, and beasts that appear to crossbreed creatures are reported alongside the reports of normal kangaroos. As though it's not interesting enough for a population of wild kangaroos to live in North America, they sometimes get mixed up with less realistic cryptids such as the chupacabra or the Jersey Devil. For serious cryptozoologists, it's important to separate the two types of sightings, and perhaps the strangeness can explain the lack of interest in the North American kangaroo by the general public. It's just too darn weird. Yeah, I think this might be I think we're down to the last three. So, again, I know I'm running overtime, but we'll make this real quick. Of course, the most popular explanation for sightings of wild kangaroos in North America is mistaken identity. Deer run rapid in many areas of the country, and they are of similar size. Deer do bear a vague resemblance to kangaroos from the neck up. Deers are also capable of rearing up on their back legs for very short periods of time, though to see one do so is rare. So this is not, of course, an actual deer. It's another photo of a kangaroo, but you would kind of see kind of a similarity. I should have put a photo of when they're in that position. Whitetails jump and bound quite capably, but of course they don't hop on their hind legs, and one would think it would be easy to spot the difference. Otherwise, there are few American animals we can logically confuse with a kangaroo. As large marsupials, they are unique to the world and have no equivalent in North America. So is it possible that Australian kangaroos have somehow managed to gain a foothold in America? Some cryptozoologists believe that the phantom animal being seen by many is not actually a true kangaroo at all, but a new species of marsupial native to North America and other continents that only resemble a kangaroo in appearance. Could this be true? Possibly, but it's not something that can be made certain until, like always, a specimen is either caught or a body is discovered that allows for scientific study. Australian kangaroos that have escaped from zoos or private properties, again, are another possible cause of the sightings. There are several. Okay, they're repeating some of the same stuff, so we're just gonna fast forward a little bit. If these animals have escaped from pride, okay, yeah. One more interesting explanation for phantom kangaroos is that they represent a rare species of rare marsupial not classified by science. The North American kangaroo, let me see. Okay, yeah, while biologically possible is a stretch, it's tough to imagine an animal that thrives in fields elsewhere in the world would go undetected for so long in America. It is even okay. Yeah, they're saying the same stuff. Okay, hang on. Yeah, this is the same. I guess I must have been in such a big hurry. I didn't even think about it. But yeah, okay, yeah, this is the same stuff. Yeah, about like the Chupacabra Jersey. Okay, so this actually will save me the trouble. So okay, yeah, so this is all new stuff. Okay. So some of these errant kangaroo sightings sound exactly like normal kangaroos. Other sightings describe giant kangaroos, ghostly kangaroos, kangaroos that look as if they are half dog, or kangaroos with weird habits, such as killing and eating sheep. The weirder kangaroo reports are sometimes classified as really being reports of giant monkeys, which, of course, I did briefly say involving the devil monkey, especially since some of these creatures are described as having upper torsos that resemble monkeys. Certain other of these reports are classified as chupacabras, and the reports of ghostly kangaroos that fade away into mist while witnesses are looking right at them are generally ignored by cryptozoologists as a subject more suitable for paranormal investigators. The term phantom kangaroo is frequently used for all types of cryptid kangaroos, regardless of how normal or bizarre the particular creature is in question is. This is a shame because the term is misleading, tending to make some perfectly normal kangaroo sightings sound as if they should only be investigated by ghost hunters, never by any respectable scientists. The term phantom kangaroo, interestingly enough, is quite similar to the phantom cat, which is widely used for reports of eastern cougars and mystery black panthers, regardless of whether the cats in question are attributed with ghostly characteristics or seem solidly physical. The cryptid kangaroo deserves more than a passing glance when it comes to research and public interest. Unfortunately, there are far more interesting legendary creatures loose in the Americas that command attention, but it's easy to imagine that the first capture of a North American kangaroo could stun the world and turn science on its ear. Whether they are escaped pets or an undiscovered species, it's fascinating to think that kangaroos might exist so far away from home. Unfortunately, the American phantom kangaroo is probably nothing more than wishful thinking, but for those who want to believe, it's a lot more likely than a Jersey Devil. Okay, we're down to the final slide. So, what are these phantom kangaroos? Are they ghostly apparitions of Australian wildlife? Or are they escapees? The latter is the most likely explanation, but local zoos were contacted during a number of these mass sightings, and none reported missing their kangaroos. Plus, the zoo escapee theory does not explain the intangible quality these creatures appear to have. Whatever these ghostly apparitions are, they have caught the attention of many Fortean researchers, startled numerous eyewitnesses, and avoided police officials who attempt to capture them, leaving us to wonder with a question that often jumps around with many of these unknown creatures. Do they live among us? That is officially it. I don't know how we did it, but we made it. So let's see here. Okay, so very quick, I just want to get to the shout outs to everybody who's all been checking in. Hello, Sarah. Good to see you. What's up, Nikki? Good. Oh, I'm glad you were here to watch this. Thank you. What's going on, Kate? Okay, I need to get off here because I know I'm going overboard with one of the other shows. So this was going to be, like I said, my final slideshow that I'm going to be presenting for the rest of this year, other than the Hurricane Mitch slideshow that I'll be presenting on to the Gravenback tomorrow. So, but next week is the season 2 finale of Nick Files, and I gotta say, man, what an incredible journey that we have gone through with these shows. So I'm only just going to spend a minute because, again, I've gone way overboard with the show. But as always, I seriously cannot thank you guys all enough for tuning in, checking what I got to present. Really means a lot. So like I always say right before I get off, I don't just do this for myself. I do this for everybody who watches. So I seriously cannot thank you guys all enough for this. So like I said, next week will be the season 2 finale of Nick Files. Tomorrow, we're going to be presenting the slideshow of Hurricane Mitch to the Gravenback. Supernatural Talk, we got John Ward of Ohio that's going to be coming on, who I actually saw at Parasite Con earlier this year. So it'll be great catching up with him again. I'm not sure what we're doing for Friday on Frighteners, but that will also be my last appearance on the show temporarily before I take a break from Frighteners as well. I'll give more details about this hiatus that I'm going to be taking after next week, but right now I just don't have the time. So I got to get off here. Thank you guys all so much. As always, as I like to say right before we go, if you guys want to check out the next show, I know I'll see some of you guys tomorrow on To the Grave and Back, Supernatural Talk and Frighteners. But as always, if you'd rather wait till the next episode of Nick Files, the season 2 finale, then I will see you guys next week. You guys all have a great night.